Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm looking at the 2026 gubernatorial map, and I wanted to do a quick video on what I think are the 5 most competitive governor's races going into the year 2025 and the 2026 elections. So there's going to be a lot of governor's races up in 2026. Around 35 to 36 governor seats are up in the 26 midterm elections. And there are a bunch that potentially could be competitive that I'm not necessarily going over in this video. States like Kansas, which has a Democratic term limited governor, could be competitive. Minnesota, New York, maybe Maine, depending on how things go, maybe New Hampshire. Texas, you could argue maybe, but there's a lot of races that could be competitive. But for the sake of this video, I want to go over the 5 that I think are truly going to be the most competitive governor's races in the United States in 2026. I'm going to go around the map and just give a little bit of a quick update on them, and I'll give a very brief prediction on how I see them going right now. So I'll start in the south with the state of Georgia. The state of Georgia, this is Republican Governor Brian Kemp. He is term limited by Georgia's constitution and cannot seek a third term. So Georgia was very, very close in 2024. Donald Trump did win the state by about 2.3% over Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States. Georgia's been very, very interesting because at the presidential level, Joe Biden actually won it in 2020 by 0.24%. Trump just won it by about 2.3%. Back in 2016, Trump won it by 5.1%. So it's still a swing state that seems to have trended more towards the Democratic side in recent elections, but Trump was able to swing it back about 2 to 3 points and win it in 2024. What that means is with Governor Kemp retiring, this is absolutely going to be one of the closest governor's races in the country, and certainly one that both parties are going to contest and try and win very, very deeply. As for the leading candidates right now, the leading only declared Republican candidate is Chris Carr. He is the Georgia Attorney General. He is the leading Republican candidate right now. Some others have also publicly expressed interest, including Burt Jones, the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Kelly Loeffler, a former U.S. Senator. You may remember she lost to Raphael Warnock in the 2021 runoff election. Brad Raffensperger, the Georgia Secretary of State, all have expressed interest, but until otherwise, we'd assume Chris Carr is the leading candidate to be the Republican at this time. There's also potential for Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Georgia representative, to run. I don't think she will, but there is that potential there. On the Democratic side, the only declared candidate right now is a church founder, Aljumi Brown, but publicly expressed interest, Stacey Abrams, who ran for governor both in 2018 and 2022, losing to Governor Kemp both times. She has publicly expressed interest in running again. Jason Carter, the grandson of former President Jimmy Carter, has been publicly expressed interest for this race. And Lucy McBath, the representative for Georgia's 7th Congressional District, has also expressed interest in this race. So in both cases, there seems to be pretty high-profile names on both the Republican and Democratic side, and what's expected to be a very close race. I think this is going to be one that leading up through Election Day is going to be considered a very close race, a toss-up race, and it really just depends, does Georgia continue to stick with its lean of about a 1 to 2 point Republican win, or does it actually flip blue at the state level? I am going to narrowly give it as tilt Republican. I think this race could get very close, but I think at the state level, we've seen Republicans continue to do well, even as President Trump won it in 16, lost it in 20, won it in 24. I do think Georgia stays red at the statewide level, even in 2026, which is expected to be a Democratic favored year. So this puts Republicans at 18 seats. Now we have 4 remaining, and I'm going to go up to the Rust Belt now, starting with the state of Michigan. Michigan's a very interesting one because this is Democratic incumbent Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and she is term limited by Michigan's constitution and cannot run again. The interesting thing here is there's going to be no shortage of Democratic candidates running for this race. Already announced is Jocelyn Benson, Michigan's Secretary of State. Pete Buttigieg, publicly expressed interest, Pete Buttigieg, of course, may know him as Mayor Pete, served in the Biden administration. He's expressed interest in this race as well as the state senator Mallory McMorrow and Chris Swanson, a county sheriff. Some potential as well for the majority leader of the Michigan Senate, Winnie Binks. Garland Gilchrist, lieutenant governor of Michigan, has expressed interest, as well as Mark Hackel and Joe Tate. So there's a lot of potential candidates on the Democratic side, and I think the Democratic primary, honestly, may be some of the most interesting part about this race. On the Republican side, a lot of potential Republicans and Republicans who have expressed interest, and some familiar names. Mike Cox, who ran or the former Michigan Attorney General from 2003 to 2011 and candidate for governor in 2010, has expressed interest. Tudor Dixon, who was the Republican nominee back in the 2022 governor's race, has expressed interest, as well as Jonathan Lindsley, state senator, and Eric Nesbitt, minority leader of Michigan Senate. He's expressed interest as well. On the potential side, there's a lot of potential candidates, including Dick Devos, Pete Hoekstra, John James, who ran for Senate both in 2018 and 2020, now serving as a congressman, Perry Johnson, who ran briefly for president, you may remember, Tom Leonard, Lisa McClain, Peter Mayer, Candace Miller, Kevin Rink, Mike Rogers, who just lost a very close Senate race in 2024. You look at the really closeness of the race, he only lost to Lisa Slotkin by 0.3%. So a very close race here. This is about, 19,000 votes separating Slotkin and Rogers, so he would certainly be, if he ran, a pretty formidable candidate in the primary. So lots of Republicans potentially running, lots of Democrats. This one is also, I think, going to be very, very close. However, on this one, we've seen Democrats tend to have a bit of an advantage at the statewide level in Michigan, even though Donald Trump did just win the state in the 2024 presidential election. I'll show you that now. Trump won Michigan 49.7% to 48.3%. I expect Democrats to do a little bit better in 2026, given it is a midterm year, and typically the party not in power does better. So I think Michigan, even though, yes, it did just vote for Donald Trump, I would start the state of Michigan off right around the lean to tilt margin. I'm skeptical if it's going to be under a 1% win or not. I think it might be around that. I would start it out as probably tilt Democrat, playing it safe like Georgia. I could see both getting over 1%, but I do think the Democrats start out nearly favored there. Next, we have the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin, this is term-limited governor, or not term-limited, Governor Tony Evers. He's eligible to run for a third term, but has not yet announced if he will do so. Wisconsin's one of the closest states in the United States at the presidential level, and I expect the governor's race to be no different. The publicly expressed interest candidates right now do include Governor Tony Evers. If he does run again, it's very likely he will be the nominee, but if he does not run, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley's expressed interest, as has the mayor of Milwaukee, Cavalier Johnson, and Ryan Strnad, a beer vendor lobbyist. And there's a lot of other potential candidates as well, but I'm not going to really get into them too much because I think Tony Evers will be the Democratic nominee. The question is, who will the Republicans run against them? And there's a lot of potential names here. One being Joe Showman, the Washington County Executive, Patrick Testin, state senator and candidate for lieutenant governor in 2022, and U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany. He's probably the high-profile Republican candidate potentially for this race. He serves Wisconsin's 7th district, and he's expected to announce not until after April 1st, 2025. Some other potential candidates, Eric Hovde, who just lost a very close Senate race in 2024. We'll take a look back at that right now. He lost to Tammy Baldwin by just 0.9%, about 30,000 votes separating Baldwin and Hovde, so a very close race. He would certainly be a very formidable Republican candidate. Rebecca Kleefisch, who was the former lieutenant governor under Scott Walker from 2011 to 2019 and candidate for governor in 2022, as well as Brian Steele, U.S. Representative for Wisconsin's 1st Congressional District. This race, I think, honestly has the potential to be the closest in the country. I know I said they've all been close so far, and there will be, but I think this one's really going to be super, super close. I do think, under the assumption that Tony Evers does run for this race, I do have this race nearly staying as tilt Democrat, and that is in large part due to the wave year mentality of the 2026 elections, where I think Democrats will do a bit better. But if it ends up not being so much of a Democratic wave year, where the electorate is Democrat +1 or something, or anything less than that, there's a real potential for a Republican to come in and unseat Tony Evers in this governor's race. So Wisconsin's a very close one, and certainly one I'm watching very closely. 2 governor's races remaining, Arizona and Nevada. We're going to go with Arizona first, because I think actually of the 2, Arizona is the more competitive. This is Democratic incumbent Governor Katie Hobbs. She is eligible to run for her 2nd term, and I believe she's expressed interest in doing so. She is going up against in one of the most Republican-leaning swing states there is, based on the 2024 presidential election, where Arizona swung a lot to the right. Joe Biden narrowly won it in 2020. Donald Trump 52% to 47%, and a very big win. Back in 2020, Joe Biden won it 49.36 to 49.06, only 11,000 votes separating Biden and Trump. And then in 2024, Donald Trump wins it by nearly 200,000 votes. So this swing state certainly swung a lot to Donald Trump's direction in 2024. And now Katie Hobbs is going to have to fend off a very strong Republican candidate in all likelihood in Karen Taylor Robson, a former member of the Arizona Board of Regents and candidate for governor in 2022, who I recently did a video about Donald Trump announcing that if she runs, he will endorse her and support her in the primary and in the election. There are other potential Republicans as well, like Jake Hoffman, Charlie Kirk, Carrie Lake, and Kimberly Yee. The only one of these candidates I think would be a strong challenger to Karen Taylor Robson in terms of being able to win this race would probably be Kimberly Yee. Carrie Lake has lost 2 elections in a row now. Charlie Kirk's more likely to stay with trying to recruit young voters than running for office himself, but you never know. But Donald Trump preemptively endorsing Karen Taylor Robson, I think, would clear the field for her in all likelihood and put her on a 1v1 matchup with Katie Hobbs in a very, very close election, which we can actually look at the 2024 governor's map, or the 2022 governor's map, and see Arizona, where Katie Hobbs defeated Carrie Lake by just 0.67% in 2022, which was supposed to be a good Republican wave year, but Democrats ended up doing much better after the decision of Roe v. Wade, among other factors, and Katie Hobbs narrowly won by 0.67%. She is up again in 2026 on what is supposed to be a Democratic wave year, but Arizona also swung 5 points to the Republican side, where not only did Donald Trump win Arizona, he also won Maricopa County, a place for Democrats to win in Arizona, they have to win. So Katie Hobbs would have to do about 4 to 5% better than Kamala Harris did to realistically have a chance to hold on in Maricopa County and win this race in 2024. And that's the thing I actually don't think she's going to be able to do. I think Taylor Robson defeats Katie Hobbs, and I think she defeats her by over 1%. That's kind of my hot take I have for this governor's race, is I do think Arizona goes for Robson, defeating Hobbs, and by over 1% margin of victory. So that's Arizona. I now have one governor's race left. That is the state of Nevada. Nevada is a very interesting one because Republican Joe Lombardo won the state of Nevada back in 2022, defeating Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak. Right now, the only publicly expressed interest on the Democratic side is Aaron Ford, but he is Nevada's Attorney General, so it's probably one of the more high-profile Democrats that would probably be in this race. The reason I think this one is going to be very close is all about Nevada itself. At the presidential level, Nevada voted for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris 51% to 47%. The first time it voted for a Republican since, I believe, 2004 at the presidential level. And we did see Joe Lombardo win it in 2022. First time I had a Republican governor since Brian Sandoval. I believe he was up in 2016. Or no, that wouldn't line up. It would be either 2014 or 2018. I believe he served through 2018. So it's been actually not too far for the Republican governor, but Lombardo did win last time by 1.5% against the incumbent Democratic governor. So he will be going up against the Attorney General, not an incumbent, so you would think he would do better. Trump did just win the state by about 4 points over Kamala Harris. But still, even with Trump winning Nevada in a lean margin, you have to assume this race will still be competitive, even if Lombardo is doing a good job as governor according to a lot of statistics. I would start Nevada off right now as lean Republican, and potentially if all the races have gone over, likely the least competitive of them all. But I still think in a high-profile matchup of the governor versus the Attorney General in the state of Nevada, which is still a swing state at the presidential level, I think certainly could have the potential to be very competitive. So those 5 governor's races, Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia, I think for right now are the most competitive ones to watch for in 2026. There is potential for a lot more to get competitive as we are still about 2 years out and coming up on 2025, now the first week of 2025. But I think these are the close ones to watch for right now. Why don't you leave a comment below telling me what you think the closest races are and how you think these ones will go. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video. That will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like. And if you really liked it, please remember to click the subscribe button. And make sure you turn post notifications on so you always get notified when I post a new video. That way you never miss one. Also, please remember to share this video with your friends and family if you really like the video. And remember to stay tuned because I'll be posting at least one video every single day leading up until Election Day. So I'd really appreciate it if you keep coming back and watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.